You know what? In regards to the Apple brand, there is no coincidence that it is called Apple and that the logo is a bitten apple, the forbidden fruit. Apple iPhone 7, 7 Plus. I actually thought about this because I upgraded my phone recently to the 7 Plus. Still waiting for it to come through, but I thought I would make this video. And it's quite remarkable, the story actually, from an esoteric or an occult point of view. The whole story of Steve Jobs and Apple, particularly with the iPhone 7. You know, the iPhone 7 first came to our awareness in 2007, which was a number 9 universal year. So that was synchronistic in that, of course, for the next 9 years, which we're currently in now, coming to the end of, the iPhone would be the mainstay of this era. So the story goes apparently that Steve Jobs, he meditated occasionally or regularly, I don't know the frequency, at a Buddhist monastery. He was into meditation and things of those sorts, if you didn't know. And he received his enlightenment, you know. He accessed the universal mind, or what we would call the Akashic record room. And that's where he got his inspiration for the Apple brand as we know it today, particularly the iPhone. On the whole logo, I got a funny story to tell you. Some years ago when I was religious, I used to actually look down upon the Apple brand. Not seriously enough to condemn it or not partake in its products, but I was being influenced by religious people, and it made sense at the time, you know. They spoke of the fact that it's evil. You know, there's certain people that actually believe the devil owns things, this red-horned man. And if there is anything nice or designer or high quality on this earth, apparently it belongs to the devil. Yeah, ridiculous as that may sound, there are people who, there are multitudes of people who subscribe to such nonsense. And I did at some point lukewarm. I wasn't really over there, but I was sort of. So, and that was obviously a good time for me to experience and to, you know, explore different natures of myself. And thank God I came out the other side of the tunnel. And one thing you have to really know is that with the Apple logo, the bitten in Apple, that is Steve Jobs' middle finger up to the system. The system, whether you see it or not, that was his middle finger up to them. It takes me back to the Bible, to the book of Genesis, and the whole story with the whole Adam and Eve and eating the forbidden fruit. Whatever you see the forbidden fruit as, you know, it's a metaphor. So whatever you see it as is entirely up to you. Some will say sex, some will say it's actually an apple. Some will say other things, but if you ask me, whether you see it metaphorically or not, the essence is the same, and that is, you had a God, I believe they call him Jehovah, who prohibited his created beings from touching the tree or eating of the fruit of the tree of knowledge, I believe. And of course, when you take things for granted as a religionist, you won't think twice about such things. But when you actually start using your head, waking up and actually being a sentient being, so not just taking things for granted, but actually processing and analyzing them, you'll think, hang on here, this is a God who we're meant to be worshipping, who doesn't want us to have knowledge. Wow. You know? And those are taboo questions, really and truly, if you are still in the dogma phase. But when you're coming to pragma, you will really realize that, look, if anyone is for you, they will want you to have knowledge, because knowledge is power. It's only somebody that wants to oppress you that wouldn't want to have that knowledge and therefore power. So I really like Apple and what they did, particularly with the logo. It's a middle finger up to that religious dogma, you know. And it's very, very much Aquarian. It came around the right time. Everything has its appointed time. And in this case with Apple, I believe it is bang in the right place at the right time in terms of where we are astrologically on the cusp. It has very Aquarian-like traits, Apple. There's something sleek, something pure, something straightforward about it, and yet so appealing to the masses. You got many other brands trying to emulate what they have done, and they've not quite hit that success, right? And then you've got the people. I was really impressed with what Apple did with the people in regards to the FBI thing. You know, the FBI wanted to bypass some security so that it can access anyone's iPhone in regards to security, and iPhone refused. They did not want to comply with such. They said that, you know, people's freedom, people's liberty, whether they're breaking the law or not, people's human right is to have their privacy recognized and respected, and they refused. And I really like the fact that they, you know, went on against the FBI, the state, the status quo. I like the fact that they didn't just give in to their requests and actually put up a fight. I'm not sure how that ended, actually. I'm sure that Apple didn't give in at all in the end. Or they had to come up with some sort of other compromise. But I really like the fact that they did that. So all those things, for me, somebody who looks at things metaphysically, who looks at things beyond the veil, beyond the surface, Apple is a really good brand, and it's no wonder it's succeeding, and it will continue to succeed for a while longer. I wasn't always into iPhone. I wasn't always into Apple. Guess when I got into it? 2014. That was a year 7 universal year. So 7 years after it was unveiled, in a year 7 year. 7 is a very spiritual number, by the way. So some of you are probably watching this and laughing because you don't understand what the hell I'm speaking of. But for those of you that do understand, and those of you that will understand, iPhone 7 is the way to go if you're looking for the next mobile phone, the next gadget. This is not a promo, by the way. Apple are not paying me. I'm just being real. I'm just connecting the dots. You had this man who meditated, reached the 0 point field, that is being able to access the Akashic record room, aka the universal mind, and he was inspired and brought this gem to us all. And of course himself, you know, succeeding and benefiting from that. Because as I said to you in regards to money, when it comes to earning your fortune, or when it comes to living abundantly, it's not just about you. You realize that you are part of the parcel. So whatever you do to reach your fortune, you know that it has to benefit you and others too. So in this case, of course, you can see what happened there with Steve Jobs. But I just like the whole fact that he got an inspiration, managed to access an Akashic record room and get the info he got. And not only that, because a lot of us get information from the Akashic record room, but that's one thing. The next thing is to actually manifest it in this 3-dimensional reality. So look, while a lot of us may just do a half of what we need to do, he went the full way, basically. And not only that, he actually, you know, I'm talking about iPhone here from 2007 onwards, but I know that the Apple was in existence way longer, and it's a gradual thing. The telephone wasn't developed in a day or a year. It had been years it was being developed. And that's what you will find when you're tapping into Akashic record rooms and other places. Those beings or those entities that guard such information will not divulge all at once. It comes in drips. It's like a leaking tap effect, you know, drip, drip, drop, drop. And they do that because, remember I said, if you go over your weight too suddenly, you can break your back. So when it comes to the universe, and when it comes to being entrusted with information that can change the world in some shape or form, whether we see it or not, you're going to be tested. They want to be sure that, you know, I say they can be your they will be different to my they. I know who I'm speaking of when I say they, the entities that be. They want to be certain that you can handle what you're being given. So they'll give you this information or this thing to do. If they see that you can handle it, onto the next, onto the next. The Bible talks about in so many places that what I'm talking about. This whole thing of being granted something by the universe because you deserve it and you're trusted with it. The Bible talks about that all the time. You know, parables such as much will not be given to you if you cannot deal with little. Deal with the little first, and then much more will be given to you. That's common sense. That's universal law. There are universal laws, and that's one of them. So that's what happened with Steve Jobs. You can see the iPhone 7 in 2007 when he released it. That was like almost the climax of revelation he had been receiving for God knows how many years or decades even. And I like that middle finger up at the system, that bitten in Apple, because there are people out there who will look at that logo and look at that brand and say it's demonic simply because it's not oppressed. iPhone is not oppressed. Apple is not oppressed. Hence, the iPhone does not need any antivirus software installed on it. It's solid. It's bulletproof. It's Aquarian. It's not like Windows. Windows, remember, came from another era. If you start studying all these companies when they were born and the people behind them, you will see a lot of the signatures I talk about. You will see a lot of, you'll even pick up things I've not picked up. That's how great this universe is. Remember, they say that you can never get bored of the Bible. It's because there's so many hidden things. So you can never ever just look at things at face value. You have to go deep, man. I mean deep. It's fun going deep as well, especially when you start doing it. It's very fun. So I think I'm going to leave it at that. I'm just trying to think of anything else. So you got the people, the apple bitten into, middle finger up to the system, to the oppressors, and Apple. And why it's so appealing to people, whether they are conscious of it or not. A lot of people you'll find can't even put their finger on why they love Apple so much, why they love it so much. They can't quite place their finger. They're not sure if it's the design, if it's the marketing, if it's this, if it's that. I'm not too sure myself. All I know is that I can see beyond what everybody else sees or most people see on the surface in terms of appreciating something or why something is the way it is. So for me and Apple, that's the realization I've come to, why I connected to it in my, Universal Year 7. And also the fact that, because for me, I remember when I started using the iPhone, I was pleasantly surprised. I was like, I've tried it now. Probably won't go back to the Android because I was an avid Android fan before that. And now Android, to me, if I use Android, like my parents have Androids, if I, use their phone or whatever, it's not clean, if that makes sense. It's scruffy, it's messy. There's something clean and I can't even explain it, to be honest with you. Apple is gangster, man.